I'm so excited to start this year off with this video. I started my programming journey about a year ago. I really was clueless as to where to start. I looked up a bunch of videos and trying to find what would be the best route for me. After a lot of trial and errors and tribulations, eventually I decided to find my own path, and that's why I'm making this video. So today I'm going to make a video on what is the best 5 languages to learn for 2023, specifically for web development. By the way, these glasses actually aren't even real. These are my blue light filter glasses. I just put them on to look smarter than I actually am. I'm going to kick it off with number 1, and that is, of course, with no surprise, HTML. I know, HTML is not a programming language, but it is the foundation for all things web development. Quick explanation of what HTML is. Essentially, it is a way to structure all your content on a web page, all right? Right here, we have a full basic document structure that it is known for, where you're going to have your head. That's what's going to comprise it of its title. And inside the body is where essentially you input all of your content, your components, right? Whether that's going to be the navigation bar, the header, the hero. It's very easy. When I first started it actually just took me about 2 weeks before I had my first website up and running. So it's actually very quickly to learn this stuff. And I mean, that's not to say that I'm proficient or I was proficient in it within that 2-week period, but I think I was pretty confident in my HTML abilities within that short period of time. So that just tells you a lot about HTML. It's such a simple language. And so once you get it out of the way, the better. So now going on to number 2, that's going to be, of course, CSS. And after learning HTML, I do recommend you start learning CSS. It stands for Cascading Styles Sheet. So if you ever see the term style sheet, that's what essentially it's referring to, the CSS portion. HTML is the way you structure your pages. CSS is essentially the styling of it, right? The look, the feel of what you want your website, app, whatever it is you're doing to look like. CSS can be a little bit more complicated. In fact, so much so that there's people that dedicate their entire career just with CSS alone, because it really does have, there really is a lot for you to cover when it comes to CSS. And while on the surface it is a styling language, it can go much deeper than that. If you're trying to get into web development and you're just trying to learn how to create a website and style it and give it the overall look, I would say with HTML and CSS, that'll really set you back quite a bit. Like, I think that you should be okay for the next couple of months after that, just learning those two and really perfecting that. Let's get into my number 3 pick. It's JavaScript. But to me, JavaScript is the first programming language that I think you should pick up, solely because it is what 99% of web browsers today support. And that is why JavaScript today is one of the most, if not the most adopted programming language on the market, because you get on a Chrome browser, on pretty much any browser today, and it's what's going to be supported. So JavaScript is a programming language that's used to interact with key features of different web pages. And according to what I'm seeing here, it's used in conjunction with, again, HTML and CSS, whether you're trying to animate a button, or you're trying to redirect a page to do something, or you're trying to connect the front end with the back end, the client side, and the server side rendering, all that stuff. Like, JavaScript pretty much handles all of it. So now moving on to my number 4 pick. Again, while technically not a programming language, I do think that this is the next step in your advancements as a web developer. If that's what you're trying to go for, is to learn something like React. Okay, so if you're not familiar with React technically is a library for building user interfaces, right? By definition, if we actually go in here, it was developed by Facebook, so there's that. But essentially, it's a single page application to develop both desktop and mobile applications. And the benefits of using something like React is that it compiles all of your data into a single page. And essentially, it makes it really, really fast. And and takes everything from the client side over to the server side. That's why it's called a server-side rendering platform. Here is our personal website. We actually use something like Next.js, which essentially is a framework of React, but it brings in the ability to bring static and server-side rendering, as well as TypeScript support, smart bundling. So you can use something like TurboPack, Turbo Repo, to really get stuff really snappy. But essentially, as you can see from our website, it loads in really fast. Like the moment you click on it, everything is just responsive. And so you're really only able to do this with something like React, just because again, it's a single page application. So everything already loads in the moment you're already in there. And so because it's all compiled into that single page, really it doesn't take a lot of data and a lot of internet speeds on your end to make it happen. That's why a lot of developers today actually use this, right? And something like Next.js still allows you to do something like SEO, which is very important for ranking those websites. And that's a whole other subject for another video. But essentially, I do think that learning something like React is going to bring you up to the next level in your web development. And so the moment you have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, of course, I'd say, start your first project, use something like React. And that alone can already help build your portfolio, and you can get in there to start getting a job. So last but not least is my number 5 pick, and that is of course NodeJS. Well, again, technically not a programming language. I do think that it is a prerequisite or requirement to have or know at least a little bit of Node.js, just because it is used pretty much on the back end of all of your JavaScript. Node.js allows you to run JavaScript on the server side. So again, not on the client side, on the server side, which can be useful for building server-side applications. It is an open source runtime environment that executes JavaScript on the outside of the browser, right? So it's not required for the browser to be able to support JavaScript. Although today, things like Chrome browsers do utilize actually Node.js inside of the browser. But in case some browsers don't support that, Node.js allows you to execute that JavaScript regardless, right? And even if you're messing with your React or Next.js frameworks, you're using a lot of Node.js pretty much to install any packages, right? So npm, pnpm, yarn, that's pretty much just using Node.js to install a lot of it. So it's something that I wasn't very familiar with in the beginning, and honestly, it's still a little confusing, and it can be. It's something that you deal with on the back end of things. But I think it's very important for you to take that natural progression, and as you're using something like React, you're going to naturally pick up on Node.js, just because you're, again, installing a lot of these packages and using it on these frameworks to essentially build out your user interface or your applications, your webs and stuff. So I used it a lot, again, on our personal website, Mired, to install a lot of packages, such as what you see right here, that initial animation where, we have our title that floats right in. We use something like Framer Motion to install it. And all throughout, right, we use it quite tremendously, right, quite a bit. So that's it, guys. Those are your 5 languages that I recommend as a developer, web developer, to learn in 2023 if you're just getting started. Of course, if you have experience, a lot of these might seem redundant and really just you might not get a lot of value. But when I was first starting off, I wished I would have had that essentially that timeline, that guidance for me to get started, just because it is a little confusing. There's a lot of languages out there to learn. And so a lot of times you're like wondering like, well, which one should I learn? Should I pick up Python? Should I pick up Java or JavaScript, right? What's the difference? And so at least having a general direction will pretty much allow you to have a sense of, achievements and goals of what you can and can't do. I might throw in there a crumb, and this is something that I'm personally learning myself right now. Rust to me is starting to take over the web. Today, we're starting to see a lot of programs switching their backend from C++, C, or over to something like Rust. Rust is going to be, in my opinion, the next big coding language that I think a lot of programmers are going to start learning. I mean, really, Rust is kind of the end all be all, the do all for programming. You can essentially use this on front end, you can use this on back end. Program or Rust to execute, everything has to be perfect. It has to be errorless free, essentially. And so it's something I'm still learning myself and still picking up, but I do hope, or I will probably incorporate a little bit of Rust into my videos in this coming year, just because it's something that I want to start perfecting and I want to share that with you guys. So let's say you already learned all these other programming languages such as JavaScript. You already have a good understanding of front-end web development, maybe some back-end. I do recommend in the next step of your experience, you start picking up something like Rust, just because I do think that is going to be the next big thing. In my opinion, honestly, I would recommend this over something like Python even today. So that's just a little, I guess, cookie I'm throwing at you guys for you guys to learn in the next either end of this year or next year. So just be on the lookout for that. So again, if you guys got any value out of this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned for future videos on programming. All right. And again, I hope you guys start off this year strong, start learning, start building yourselves up in whatever it is you're doing. And I hope that at least I can be of help in any way, shape, or form. So with that said, guys, I'll see you on the next one.